Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, I read the next story that's coming up, and it annoyed me. And I couldn't figure out why it annoyed me, but I think I know why it annoyed me. And it was irking the shit out of me. Democrats reject proposal to force Bernie Sanders to join the party. This is the mustachioed man himself, Dave Weigel. Democrats reject proposal to force Bernie Sanders to join the party. The title by itself, and I thought to myself, how the fuck are you making somebody join your party? How are you going to force Bernie Sanders to join your party? Wish they would have passed it. I wish they would have passed it. The Democratic National Committee on Friday rejected a resolution that would have urged independents such as Bernie Sanders of Vermont to register or affiliate with the Democratic Party next year, one of several small victories for the party's left wing. Now, it's not purely just how are you forcing somebody to register as a Democrat. It's not that. It's more to it. There's a larger meta-narrative at work that is important. Let me read this first, and then I'll come back to it. This pours salt in the wound that we need to be closing right now, said James Zogby, the outgoing chairman of the DNC's resolution committee, as the measure would be debated in a morning meeting. The consequences would feed a Twitter debate that would not be helpful to any of us right now. What he's trying to say is, look, there's a large divide in the party itself. And that large divide in the party, they are doing their best to pretend that that divide is not there and to just mend it and move on, etc., etc. And anything that comes up that puts a highlight on that divide, they look at it as problematic. I look at it as problematic that they are pretending as if there's some sort of unity in this party. I find that to be comical, ridiculous, and if you look at it from a reality-based standpoint, there are a lot of angry people at that party that no longer consider themselves part of the party. When you've had 15 million people stream out of your party like people flailing a burning ship, you don't have a party in that way. Something is fundamentally wrong. Now, how do you bring those people back into the party? Well, you're pretending as if that doesn't necessarily exist. And the reason why I say they're pretending it doesn't exist, because none of this hits immensely at the heart of what we're talking about. This thing of what the Democratic Party was, what the Democratic Party needs to be to deal with the challenges that's presented it. That's off the table. We're beating around the edges with ridiculousness if we're talking about this party. Outgoing person, rules committee, or whatever. I get it. They're looking at it as what we can do now is pretending as if none of this shit exists, so we're just going to move on. The larger narrative here, however, is the reason they want to do this is because having Bernie Sanders not be a Democrat, having all these progressives who don't consider themselves Democrats, having all these people working and functioning out of the party, gets it into the public's mind that, hey, the Democratic Party is not the definitive left. Left is something else. The Democratic Party is not the definitive left. These guys are out here saying these things and talking and moving and doing all this other stuff. They're not Democrats. When you're talking about Bernie Sanders is out there debating Ted Cruz. He's not a Democrat. In that debate, he's not a Democrat. He's Bernie Sanders, the independent senator from Vermont. Yes, I've been sheepdogging people to the party, but many of those people are aligned with me, not necessarily the Democratic Party, and those people see a distinction between who I am and what I represent versus what that party is and what that party represents. The distinction is the problem. If you only had two parties and you've told everybody for the past X number of years that you only have two parties, the Republican Party is the right-wing party, the Democratic Party is the left-wing party, and these are the extremes of debate that we take in this country. Now the problem is, the majority of that they already agree on. Oftentimes we're quibbling over minor distinctions. If you're getting to the point of saying something that is a left-wing party, meaning something that's fundamentally different, meaning a party that's different, that espouses different things, has different agendas, and that is not ashamed in having those different agendas, That's not what you get. You get two parties that for the most part agree on the same things. They agree on the way things are. The way George Bush said it, the quote-unquote governing class. The governing class. Well, Bernie Sanders, those are wrench in that. If you're telling me that the Democratic Party is the left-wing party and you have this guy out here and he's actually to the left, then what the hell is the Democratic Party? They have problems with that. They don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to have that talk about dealing with someone who's to the left of them. They want to absorb that particular energy. The last thing they want is a society to understand that there is something else in politics. That something else is not a Democrat. That something else is not a Republican. You have somebody who's actually to the left, is not ashamed of being on the left, and fights for certain issues that the Democratic Party is supposed to fight for, but don't. The fact that Sanders is out there shows up, I guess you could say, the failure on this card. Like, having all these progressives work outside the party, having Bernie Sanders work outside the party, have people who work in independents or even Greens. These people getting in any level of spotlight creates a problem for the Democratic Party because it attacks the Democratic Party on their left. What are you supposed to represent? You're not representing what you're supposed to represent. I am the actual left. I am what the Democratic Party used to be. This is what somebody looks like when they're actually fighting for the American public. Oh my God, shut that man up. He's embarrassing us by his presence. He's embarrassing us by his presence. The things that he's saying is showing a light on what we are not. And that's a problem. So this resolution of Bernie Sanders needs to become a Democrat. Bernie Sanders needs to become a Democrat. And all these other progressives who are out there working outside the party needs to become Democrats. Well, they voted that down, but that I would make the case that that's the larger narrative. That's the larger narrative. Let me put the rest in. The resolution introduced by 3 DNC members from California attracted attention this week as one more skirmish between those who supported Hillary Clinton in the 2016 Democratic presidential primary and those who supported Sanders. Bob Moulin, the DNC member who pitched the resolution in the committee, argued that Democrats were losing potential votes by letting progressives work outside the party. I thought we were Democrats here, said Moulin. No, he's not. If he wanted to be a Democrat, he would have called himself a Democrat. Clearly, he wanted to be something different. When he ran in the contest last time, he ran as a Democrat. Immediately after that contest, he got rid of that thing and went back to being the independent senator from Vermont. If he wanted your label, he would have taken on your label. So no, the quote-unquote, we're all Democrats here. No. Apparently you're not. Apparently they're not. Not everyone is. When the Yankees faced off against the Dodgers, the only people who will be independent in that ballpark will be the press. Will be the umpires. What does this have to do with politics? What does it have to do with politics? What does your baseball analogy have to do with people who don't necessarily consider themselves to be Democrats? Now, you're trying to say that you're going to force somebody who's an independent to be a Democrat. That sounds amazing to me. That's amazing to me. And it's weak. I got to be honest, it's weak. We're going to try to make people become Democrats because those people don't want to be Democrats on their own merits. It just sounds weak. That's all. It sounds immensely weak. It's really troubling when you get the resolution package and you find out your state has been named in it without any prior consultation, said Anderson. We've come to a solution that works for us, and we didn't need external voices telling us how to solve our primaries. Next year, Bernie Sanders will win the Democratic primary, and he would win re-election as an independent. The resolution died a quick vote. Early in the day, Sanders supporters scored another win by passing language official rejecting corporate donors that conflict with our DNC platform. All right, that's another story altogether. I just wanted to have a conversation about this part. Their issue is that you have all these people who are streaming away from the party. They're trying to pretend as if that doesn't exist. They're moving along as if that doesn't exist. And each and every issue that comes up creates this kind of fracture of people who are saying, yeah, we don't want to do it that way anymore. We think that way is problematic. You guys have failed at every level of government. You failed at every level throughout the United States. The adults are back in charge. Now, they don't look at it that way. and the corporatists not necessarily understand that they're dying and the party are, it's falling apart, that it's feckless and weak and it doesn't necessarily have the capacity to solve the challenges that are presented to it. They still fight tooth and nail. There was a story that came out the other day, them kicking out certain Bernie Sanders supporters who were in that particular party, in that particular position. There were certain people who were in the leadership, what is it called? Certain parts of the committee, and many of those members were Sanders supporters, and they got rid of them. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to overly belabor this point. Alright guys, I hope that went through okay. I'm seeing red and yellow and all this other stuff on my signal. Alright, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks guys.